Good afternoon. I'm Scott Schaefer, Traffic Product Manager for MS Sedco. And to my left is Jessica Myers, our Senior Project Engineer and developer of the U software. What we're introducing is the U software, which is new and improved from all of the software we've had in the past. And we are proud to introduce it to you today. Jessica.
So before we get too far into the new features, I just wanted to give a little flashback to the Intersector over the years. So Intersector was first launched in fall of 2009. It was the first product of this kind that used a web browser for user interface rather than a custom application. And it's also the first one that did stop bar and advance in one unit. Over these years, we've completed testing at universities, city DOTs, state DOTs. Some of the highlights from the university testing include University of Wisconsin, Illinois University, and University of Idaho. Those studies can be found on our webpage. The hardware, just to give a quick highlight of what the Intersector is, it's a 24 gigahertz radar detector with 7 unique RF channels. You can have multiple intersections. It can control up to 8 opto outputs in the traffic cabinet via its TCIB cards. Typically, you'll see about 160 feet for pedestrian, 600 feet for passenger cars. Depending on the application, you may see well more than that. And the field of view is 30 degrees left-right, 12 degrees up-down. The web page is the primary user interface for the Intersector. It uses Chrome and Internet Explorer, which you're used to, new to 1.9. We've added compatibility with Firefox and Edge. And in the 1.9U, everything looks and feels just like you're used to seeing with our previous releases of software.
Our unit still operates through the TCIB card, which is our interface card. Our interface card works with NEMA 170, 179, and the 2070 cabinets, and with their controllers. Our first module is a 2-channel module, the 2.1. Our second module is which works primarily with the 170, 179, and the 2070s. Our 4-channel, the 4.1, works with TS1, TS2, and if the cabinet is configured properly for this card, it will work in the 336 and the 332 cabinet. Our TCIB 4.2, this card is used for cabinets of the TS1 type and many of the 170 type cabinets where you're using where the matrix are still wired into the backboard of the cabinet, in which you're using slot 2 for output 1 to slot 1 for output 3 and 4. You need to block off the slot number 1 in order to make it work, and that's why we have the blank card or the blank plate on the front of that. We also have a 4th module, which is our secondary or extension card, which we recently found that people didn't even know that existed. But many of our cabinets, when you need 8 outputs, you need a secondary card to get your additional 4 outputs, and that would be our extension card. Our Intersector has many new features, and Jessica will explain those features.
So the 5 main ones that we're going to talk about today include rain failsafe, automated OZP, zone clear feature, save and load zone data, and bicycle classification sensitivity.
We'd like to explain first of all the rain failsafe, probably one of our more important features that we have added.
So on the technical side, before we deep dive too much into the new feature, I wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page with the terminology that I use and you'll hear us using if we're in the field or throughout this webinar. The rain intensity factor is a calculated value that us in the engineering department came up with. It looks at the first 10 feet in front of the radar and does calculations to determine what the intensity of the rain it's seeing in front of it. The rain counter threshold is an upper limit of the rain intensity factor before it goes into that failsafe. It's user configurable. And then we have the rain flag, which is a visual indicator to the user on the user interface to let them know that it's in recall or in the failsafe mode. For the user interface, the places you'll see this rain feature is on the zone settings page. There's a number and the flag right above the grid view. The number that you'll now see is the rain intensity factor, and it'll update as you go. And then if that rain failsafe is enabled, you'll see the text rain next to it. If it's not in failsafe mode, then you will not see any text there. But then on the setup page is your rain counter threshold, which is where a user can go in and adjust that counter threshold as they see fit. So how the feature works is Intersector continually calculates and updates this rain intensity factor, and it's constantly comparing it against that rain counter threshold. So if it's below that counter threshold, it's going to operate exactly as you're used to Intersector operating, and if it exceeds it, then your fail-safe mode enables and all outputs go into recall. The rain flag will display on the user interface, and those will stay active until 5 minutes after the intensity factor drops below the counter threshold. So that gives it time to recover from any occlusions might have seen because of rain. It keeps it stabilized if it's hopscotching that counter threshold. It just keeps it smooth during operation. So how the counter threshold works is it's got a data entry that ranges from 1 to 5,000. The default is 1,000, which we found to be a very heavy rain, 2 inches per hour. If you feel that you might need a little bit more protection just because maybe a poor install location or you just want more protection, you can lower that counter threshold to make it more sensitive to rain. If you feel that you don't want any of the fail-safe, you can set that value to 5,000.
Yes, and just to sum up what Jessica just told us is we have these features for many different reasons to make it adjustable. In Mississippi, you need it adjusted for one thing. In Colorado, you can adjust it for the other. And again, it comes preset for 2 inches of rain, which is pretty heavy rain. Most people aren't driving in rain. And our other reason for this is we're finding out as our product becomes more popular with wrong way detection that you do need to shut it off for wrong way detection because you want this to work in every situation. And again, our feature is primarily needed for the advanced detection, not so much for stop bar detection. And that's why we feel comfortable that you can shut it off for wrong way detection. Moving on, we're going to our OZP, which has been one of those interesting features that's often hard to explain, but for its occlusion zone protection. And the reason this is really out there is if anything goes wrong, somebody backs up, somebody turns into a gas station, someone puts the convertible top up, whatever the case might be, we see it as a non-traffic target, and we're not sure, so we go into OZP, which protects us in case anything goes odd at the intersection or something comes in front of our unit, whatever it might be, we go to OZP, and of course Jessica will explain that in more detail.
Okay. So OZP, with this new automated OZP feature, will set your OZP in that zone to whatever the remaining delay before max is for that last vehicle. So for example, if a vehicle drops or is occluded prematurely, it's now not a set amount of time. It gives it the entire amount of delay before max. And the flip side of that coin is you're not holding that last vehicle, for any longer than what you wanted your delay before max to be in the first place. So just to give an example of what exactly we're talking about here. So in this example, we're setting the defaults where the DBM is 120 seconds and your OZP is cleared or null entry. Let's say you have a vehicle come in, he's the only one in the zone, and after 20 seconds of being in that zone, he gets occluded. Well, now he's held for his remaining 100 seconds until either he begins moving again or just drops. For the other side of that coin is if a car breaks down in that lane and you don't want to hold him longer, he is only held for his delay before max, and that zone will be cleared when you'd like him to be. Also, with this automated OZP, we added the ability to see your remaining delay before max timer in the zone table or in the vehicle table. So when a vehicle comes in and comes to a stop and the speed equals 0, that classification number is going to turn into your DBM time remaining. You can actually watch it count down until either he begins moving again, speed is greater than 0, then it'll change back to classification. This new feature is enabled by default with 1.9u. If you'd prefer to go back to your OZP behavior, you just enter a number into that OZP field on the setup page, and it'll work exactly as you're used to seeing with previous versions.
And so, just to sum it up, there's no perfect intersection, there's no perfect anything out there. So we have tried in our software and have succeeded to have a function that will allow you to protect for the oddities that might happen. Our next one would be a zone clear. This is something that we've seen, and we thought that it would be very important to have this feature. In some situations, we'll use an example of a school bus with all the cutouts of the window that when it pulls up, it will send out signals all over the place, and you could have possibly, for a better term, I hate to use it, but you could have a false call because of the school bus. So this is one of the features, and of course Jessica will go into more details on how this works, but it is a really good feature to have right now.
So the two main adjustable settings that this feature has now is a set clear time and clear speed. So the clear time is the amount of time after a vehicle leaps the front of the zone and travels 10 feet before it'll clear anything out in the zone that either hasn't moved or has not reached the clear speed that the user can set up. So to just give everyone an idea, I put an example in here because I know it's hard for me to wrap my head around it whenever we were first storyboarding this feature. So at t, negative t, before any vehicle crosses that front of the zone, everything's going to be held as you're used to with DBM and your OZP settings. Once that front car crosses 10 feet in front, it's going to start that clear timer. And then after that amount of time, as you can see in column 1, at time equals 1, the back two cars did not, vehicle number 3 did not exceed the 2 mile an hour, vehicle 4 didn't move at all, and so it cleared those vehicles. Any vehicle that is continuing to actually move will be reassigned a new number, and it'll continue tracking it as it's used to. Anything like Scott said where it was a ghost will get cleared, and you don't have to worry about it. So those settings are available to you on the setup page. By default, the clear time is 1 second, and the speed is 2 miles an hour. The value entry ranges from 0.1 to 10 seconds, miles per hour, depending on which one you're talking about. If you do not want to use this feature and just want to disable it, you can do the set clear time to 0, and it'll work as you're used to seeing without the clear feature.
Zone clear is another feature added to this. If you go ahead. Sorry.
We just went through that.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm reading this. The teleprompter here is one step behind my brain. Save and load data. This is a real neat feature. If we've been experiencing over the years where we copy and paste, which is very effective and it works all right, but we don't always get all of the data that's necessary to just upload into the new program. My Failsafe has always been to use print screen, and I save the print screen so I know exactly what was on the screen before. But in our U software, we have made this very extremely a lot easier, but also more accurate. So when you do reload, say if somebody knocks the unit down, or Bob with his new gun decides to take it out and you have to put a new unit up, we can download that. I'm sorry, Bob, by the way. we can download this and, or excuse me, upload the saved program, and you'll be able to move on. Jessica?
So how this works is on the setup page, you'll now find a save zone data and load zone data at the bottom. The save zone data will take whatever configuration is currently on the intersectors on the setup page and zone settings page and store down into a text file. You can do this with any web browser. The 1.9U addendum provides detailed information as to how that data gets saved, because that's dependent on the web browser, not the intersector itself. And then, as Scott says, if for any reason something happens and you want to load the zone data back up to it, you click the load zone data feature. Engineering, we recommend the Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox. We found it's the most reliable. Internet Explorer Edge mostly works, but sometimes we've seen issues with its JavaScript, so highly recommend Chrome and Firefox.
Yeah. And it's a good feature to have. I highly recommend everybody using this. You have no idea how many times someone has refreshed 2 intersectors by accidentally uploading the program from the other intersector up into that intersector, and what happens is you're starting right back over from scratch. So we highly recommend always saving your data using this format. The other advantage of this format is, and this certainly happened to me one time, the fellow in Texas accidentally erased it, and because I saved it on my laptop, we were able to email him the program, and he was able to upload it almost immediately. So it's definitely a great feature to have. And probably our last feature that's good, and we really need this, is bike sensitivity, because bicycles, if you haven't figured it out yet, the Bicycle Coalition has a lot of power, and bicycles are being required, and as we'll go into a little bit later, we're also Caltrans approved for that. So by making it sensitive, it allows us to have adjustable capabilities. Jessica?
So whenever you're doing bike classification, setup is very critical, very crucial. Listed on this slide are the recommended parameters you should try to stay within whenever you're doing an install. And even with the most perfect of installs, every intersection has its own, flavor, as I like to say. And so we added this bike classification sensitivity to really fine-tune how it classifies vehicles. So this classification sensitivity, if you think of the radar having a scale of vehicles, small vehicles being bikes, large vehicles being cars, there's a threshold in there that can be a little soft with bigger bikes or smaller motorcycles, where you're on the edge of bike versus car. So with the sensitivity, you can adjust that level one way or the other. If you increase that sensitivity number, the smaller vehicles are more likely to be classified as bikes. If you decrease that number, it's more likely to be classified as a car. The value can be found on the setup page. By default, we found 1500 to be a very good average, classified bikes as bikes, cars as cars, on at least the roads around here. In the field where we've had car-only approaches that maybe are coming out of a roundabout or out of a sharp turn, and we always want to make sure everything's classified as a car. We found that number being 300 to 500 worked out really well in those applications. In other places where you're trying to do a bike lane where it's dedicated, the only vehicle you're going to see in that zone is a bike. You want to make sure it is classified a bike. We've set it as high as 1750 to 2000, and it's worked out really well for us.
And remember, part of our bike detection capabilities is based on how big a person is, because we're really not detecting the bicycle itself per se because of the low metal and low reflection. So the bigger you are, the better the bike sensitivity will be. So if you're in a neighborhood with a bunch of people like me, you might want to turn the sensitivity down. But most of the time, you would want it sit at the 1500. And that's really towards the end of our program. So we'd like to just do a summary of of what we went over, and I'll turn it over to Jessica.
I thought you were doing it.
I was going to do this. I got this. Okay, so the new software is the advantages, as you guys can read. I don't know if you want me to read this all to you, but detection not affected by radar. We have a little asterisk there because we do have it set at 2 inches of rain. Some other manufacturers turn theirs down to 1 inch, but we do work up to 2 inches of rain without any effect to the unit. Immune sunrise, we know that. We're radar, road damage, you know all of this. I'm going to skip through quickly. Successfully detects bikes and motorcycles. So we will always detect a bicycle at 1500, but if it's specifically a bicycle trail, then we would definitely want to turn that up higher. And certainly no privacy concerns as we're getting into this stage where everybody knows everybody's doing. With cameras and so on, we can put everyone to rest on that. We allow our users to visually track the vehicles, easily set up detection zones, and verify the system is functioning correctly and able to troubleshoot it if necessary, which is not very often. Probably our greatest accomplishment, took 7 years to do. We are Caltrans approved. And what that means is Caltrans approved not only to detect cars, but Caltrans, they really have this bicycle detection down pat. We've been working on bicycle detection for 7 years, and we are approved there, and we are looking forward to doing a lot of business with bicycles. And if you have any questions, please call, or excuse me, please email in.
Yeah, so I think you can ask questions if you hit the question mark symbol in the webinar. So we're ready for questions that you might have.
And that's the rest of the story.
The website has any more details as you start to digest this and realize you have questions. Feel free to visit our website. It has a lot of the information we're containing here in more depth.
Okay, so got this one? This is your baby. Okay.
So Josh asked, how does snow factor in? So snow does actually see on the radar about 1/10 of a reflection as a raindrop. So we will detect snowflakes. Just their intensity is going to be less just because they're less dense, and they cause less occlusions because they are less dense and less reflective.
Mm-hmm. As you will have an opportunity, this webcast will be also available for you off and connected through our web page, but also all of our data sheets, all of our information sheets. We have also videos of how to install and how to program in the full rank. You can watch all of this on our YouTube by clicking on our YouTube account from our webpage, and it will take you right there, and you can watch it.
I see another question that we're asked is if this is available for units older than 1.8S, and the answer to that, I believe, is no. I think it needs to be a 1.9M or above to really take advantage of all these features. Are there any more questions that you might have? Last chance.
Last chance. So silence is golden for me, so I don't have to answer any questions. But do continue on. You all certainly, I should imagine, have my email address, and if need be, we can give you Jessica's email address, and we can answer any future questions. If you want us to, we'd be more than glad to make arrangements to come out and personally demonstrate this. Contact your local distributor, which can also be found on our webpage. And looking forward to doing more product shows with you.
Thank you all for attending, and glad that we're able to provide this information to you.
Thank you.